Assalamu alaikum, inshallah you're well guys. So recently there's been a lot of negativity in the press. Interest rates rising, energy bills set to hit £5,000 per year, a recession round the corner, and the government needing to do more to help people in need. And in my opinion, as an accountant, I think people are a bit oblivious as to what's coming next year. They're living in the now, they're not preparing for the future. A perfect example of that is holidays. We're living in such difficult times, but currently the demand for holidays outweighs the supply. It doesn't make sense. And inshallah in today's video, I wanted to give people some financial tips to help them budget and prepare for the future. The first tip is to know your expenditure and understand where your money is being spent. Now, banks can help with this. They often have features which will analyze your spend. They will group transactions into certain categories for you. But I'm talking going back to basics by reviewing your transactions on a daily basis to understand where your money is going. By reviewing your transactions daily, you may find that your expenditure is erratic. You'll fill up the car whenever you need to. You'll go to a convenience store every couple of days, even though you do a big weekly shop at one of the major supermarkets. There aren't many patterns in your spending, and straight away you can have better control. Instead of filling up the car whenever it's needed, you start to fill it up on a Monday only. That way, you can manage your expenses and you know exactly how much is going to be spent or budgeted to be spent on each day. Next is to do a specific review of your direct debits and recurring commitments. So as an example, if you've signed up to a subscription service like Amazon Prime, it's likely that they're charging you about £10 a month. Equally, you may have Sky and Virgin Media for your TV, broadband and live rental. Review that expenditure, look at it, think, do you need all of those features or can you cut down and save yourself some money each month? Equally, how long has it been since you last negotiated your package? In the past, I've found that you can save around £10 to £15 a month just by ringing up and threatening to leave. Through this process, you may find that you're paying extra for certain services. So an example of that is car insurance. If you pay it off in one go, in one installment each year, you end up paying less than if you decide to pay monthly. Apart from the fact that you're paying extra, there's also another concern for Muslims because that falls under riba, which means excess, and that is impermissible. Third is to change your mindset. Now, a lot of people will often budget for their expenditure, which is absolutely fine. That's a great way of saving. But what is more powerful is to set a spending limit and stick to it. So for example, outside of rent and bills, you're only going to spend £1,000. And off that £1,000, you're going to set £50 aside for unexpected expenses. So when you have to do a car service or you blow your tires and your tires need replacing, you don't need to spend any extra money because you've been setting money aside each month. Then any money left over will go into a separate savings pot. Not all people will follow this, however. Often people will save what they can and then they will dig into it when something unexpected comes up. But by setting a spending limit, you're improving your finances. So with these tips, you're reviewing and consolidating your expenditure. You're cutting down on waste, but you're being smarter because you know when you're spending your money and how much you're spending. And everyone should be following these tips because I'm not asking you to go and shop in the budget aisle. I'm not asking you to go and live a life that you don't want to. All I'm asking you to do is to have more control over your finances. On a side note, guys, when you're following these tips, make sure you write things down. You want to understand the impact of following these tips. How much extra are you saving each month? Normally, I recommend Excel to people, but even good old-fashioned pen and paper works. So you've looked at your outgoings. Next, you need to look at your incomings. And the first thing to look at is your salary. I've spoken previously in another video about ways to increase your pay. Inshallah, please do check it out. But one of the quickest ways to increase your salary is to move and get a job elsewhere. In the current market, you can move and potentially get a pay rise of around 10 to 15%. But before you move jobs, guys, make sure you take other things into account as well, because obviously there's a balance to be had. You don't want to move jobs for an extra 10k, which may be around 5k after tax, and then you find that your work-life balance is awful, that the role doesn't fit around your other commitments, and actually you had a really comfortable job before. You should also be reviewing your pay slips. Are there any deductions such as unions or gym memberships that you don't need from work? It's likely that the biggest deduction in your pay slip which you have control over is going to be a pension. And if you're young, I don't advise you saving into a pension scheme, because who says you're going to live long enough to see the benefit of that pension scheme around the age of 65? And a lot of people will disagree with me. They will say, no, it's important that you save for your future. And I understand that argument. But my counter to that is, why are you bothering saving for a future when you're struggling to live in the now? Another issue is permissibility, because pension providers will invest those funds into companies to see the pot grow and maximize the returns to you when you eventually retire. And they may invest in banks, gambling, or alcohol companies, which are all haram. This is clear-cut impermissible. Now, outside of your main role, you should be looking at opportunities to increase your revenue streams. Now, the simplest and most cost-effective way is to open up a service-based business. So whether that's cleaning, gardening, tuition, babysitting, it's very likely that you'll have the skills to provide a few of these services. And I'm not asking you to work every hour of the week. It's important you spend time with your family and friends, but if you work 1 to 2 hours extra a week, you could probably generate around £100 to £150 extra income per month. Lots of people speak about productivity these days and how we can always improve. And they're 100% right. Just look at the hours that we waste on our phones each day. Maybe we can get up a little earlier or sleep a little bit later to generate those extra hours to work on a side hustle. We often have an excuse, or we don't have enough time. The reality is we don't make the time. So you've looked at your income and your expenditure. The next thing is to have a really candid conversation with your family and friends. Sorry bro, I can't go out today because my budget doesn't allow for it. If you're candid with your family, they may help you cut back on certain luxuries. I feel a lot of people will feel conscious or embarrassed about having this conversation, but don't be. You've got a family to feed or a family to save up for, not people to impress. And I'm not asking you to share details. You don't have to tell anyone how you're going to save an extra £100 per month, but you just need to be firm and clear. Sorry, I can't go out today because I'm controlling my finances a little bit better. Simple. The final advice is don't take out any debt, which you may think is quite obvious. Of course, I'm not going to take out a loan. But actually, there are many other forms of debt around us. So you have buy now, pay later agreements, such as Klarna. You've got interest-free payment plans. You've got credit cards. You've got hire purchase agreements. All of those for Muslims are impermissible anyway, so we can't take them out. But they are traps. Schemes such as Klarna and PayPal credit will make you feel like you can afford that £100 jacket. It's only £33 a month for 3 months, but the reality is if you can't afford to pay for it in one go, then you cannot afford it. These sort of schemes make items look affordable and make you feel like you're budgeting, but they only work in a perfect world when you know 100% of what your outgoings are and what your incomings are. But we know the world isn't perfect. Every single month we have expenses which we never planned for. Honestly guys, I think these tips are very simple to follow. Anyone can do it, and if you do follow them, you may generate an extra £100 to £150 a month, which will come in handy when things get much tighter from the end of this year onwards. Inshallah, I'll leave it there for now. As always, any questions or queries, feel free to comment below or message me on Instagram.